I started to meet people that I would never have met otherwise, that were kind of idols. And that was exciting, because again, growing up as someone very, very shy and introvert, I never thought I'd ever meet people who I'd sort of looked up to or bought records of, or were my heroes. And that continued. I mean, obviously Paul O'Grady, but working with people like Ricky Gervais just blows your mind. And you're not like just meeting or getting a selfie, you're literally campaigning with, you're meeting with.
Like you were building a relationship with these people.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Ricky now for like 11, 12 years. We don't hang out all the time, but occasionally we'll meet each other, and or I can ask him to share stuff on socials. And it's amazing, I mean, more than amazing, to have these people in your life that can accelerate your campaigning messaging, elevate, spread, distribute, whatever you want to call it, and also endorse. It's not just about the number of people they can reach, it's the endorsement of these people. You know, you can have a celebrity with no followers on socials, but it's the fact that they endorse your campaign. It creates a bit of a fear of missing out for other celebrities as well, and other supporters. So yeah, it's been a fascinating few years.
It really has. So because obviously, as people know, you've done some amazing campaign that has, changed the entire game of animal welfare. And what was the starting point of that? Like, obviously you had this immense care for animals, but at what point did it switch where you were like, no, I have to take control of this now?
When I was on a night shift in 2009 in my emergency clinic that I ran in Patcham, just outside Brighton, and 8 puppies came in with 8 different owners from 8 different subscribing vet practices around. And they all had a disease called parvovirus, and they all were kind of Jack Russell crosses. And this is a bit suspicious. Now, anyone who has a dog or knows about parvo knows that it's probably the most horrific disease dogs can get, puppies can get, and it's usually from environments of poor husbandry, irresponsible breeding, puppy farming, for example, where bitches aren't vaccinated, puppies aren't vaccinated, so they pick up this disease, which is everywhere. And it's one of the reasons we give vaccinations to puppies. And it rips through them, it makes them vomit, diarrhea. Apologies if you're eating your dinner or your breakfast, and it's incredibly painful, incredibly sad, very hard to treat, very expensive to treat. They usually die unless you catch them early. Luckily these guys all came in early. I think we saved 6, we lost 2 sadly. So not only are these new owners sort of absolutely distraught because these puppies that they've bought are now dying, but the kids are upset. They've had to now disinfect their houses. The vet bills are huge because you have to do barrier nursing, and the drugs that we use are expensive. So it was a nightmare, and it was an injustice I felt that just really didn't sit well with me. So I then went undercover and found where they were being sold, which was a stable block just outside Brighton, and it was legal. So it was a legal, you could call it a legal third-party commercial puppy dealer, and they had a pet sales license, legal. And I found out, because I was peeling stickers off the vaccination certificates they were giving out, that they were buying these puppies in from puppy farms, which are large-scale commercial dog breeding units, often in rural areas, that prioritise profit over welfare. Battery farms for dogs, basically, in the dark. And who sell their puppies remotely via these third-party dealers. So you never see the mum. And I just thought, this isn't right. But the whole chain was legal, the whole pipeline was legal. And at the time, the government's advice was always see puppy interacting with his or her mum in the place they were born. But the government was also issuing licenses to sell the pups remotely from third-party dealers like the stable block. So it's like the government is essentially warning against its own licensing system. And this, again, was like hypocrisy from the top. And I just started to think, right, I can maybe change this. And I can educate people, that would be the first way. And because I'd I was a TV vet that was going around the country judging dog shows. I thought, if I get celebrities to judge the dog shows, they'll pull in the media, help raise awareness about the correct way to choose a dog, which is to either go to a responsible breeder and see the puppy interacting with his or her mum, place they were born, or consider rescue. But there's, if you don't go to a third-party dealer, you're not going to be complicit in this cruelty. And obviously puppy farms are places that are out of they're hundreds of miles away from sort of the beaten track. The breeding dogs and the stud dogs kept horrifically, they have mammary tumours, womb infections, infectious disease, they're inbred, the surgical disease, behavioural disease, cause financial issues when these poor dogs are bought and have issues. So I thought, if people could only rescue or buy responsibly, that would end the industry. So I started a dog show called the World's Biggest Puppy Party, and I called it that to get people in through the doors. It didn't really work, and I lost a fortune because I didn't know what I was doing, and it was at the racecourse in Brighton, which, as an animal welfare event venue, it's pretty extreme. I'm obviously not into my horse racing, but it was a venue that was available, and I cobbled it together, and we had stands, and we had food, and we had live music, and we had the paddock, which was a fantastic dog show ring, and we had local celebrities that were judging it. We had someone from the Bill, and we had a very famous boxer called Michael Watson, who was famously brain damaged by Chris Eubank, but he judged best boxer dog. And people drove for miles and brought their boxer dogs just for him to sort of touch. He wasn't really physically capable of sort of walking around the dog show ring, but he was there. Yeah. Caroline Lucas was there, who at the time was a European MP. We had someone from EastEnders. So all of a sudden it was sort of, there was well-known, high-profile personalities judging the dog show, and then in the middle of the dog show we had this parade of ex-rescued breeding puppy farm dogs, and everyone started crying, and it was quiet, and this was almost like the presenting of the evidence. And even though I lost a fortune that year in terms of financial, because I had to buy cheap carpet to put down in the stand in case the dogs peed. There was so much stuff that and we had a bit of sponsorship, but it never covered all of it. But I knew that there was something in that day, and then the next year I hooked up with a couple of friends who, one was the events officer for Stanmer House, Rebecca, and then my other friend Stuart, who was a sort of expert in health and safety and the boring stuff, as I call it. And we formed a community interest company called Pup Aid as a nod to Live Aid. And we did it in the back garden of Stanmer House for 2 years, and the calibre of celebrity got higher, and we had Rizzle Kicks, who were massive back then. Patsy Palmer was huge in EastEnders, and she judged, I think, best red setter, because she's ginger. There was this chocolate shop in Brighton at the time called Chucky Wucky Doodah. They judged best chocolate Labrador. Love it. So we tweaked everything to the celebrity. And then Meg Matthews at the time, who was Noel Gallagher's ex, she had a little Boston Terrier called Oscar, who was from a puppy farm, and she came down and got involved and said, at the same time, we both agreed, because I was from Northwest London and so was she, that Primrose Hill would be the best place to get even more celebrities. So we moved the dog show to Primrose Hill every September for the next 7 years. Ricky Gervais came, Sarah Harding, Brian May, Elle Macpherson. I mean, it was nuts for 7 years. We had so many celebrities that used to come. Paparazzi, all the Love Island, Made in Chelsea. Oh my god! It was all. Anyways, Essex. So it was all like Rachel Riley, Sue Perkins. It was a whole spectrum of demographics that would influence people, from the reality stars to the sort of the highbrow to people like Ricky. And my vision was really to educate the masses and use these celebrities as the inspiring sort of key opinion leaders, if you like, that were sending out the messages of, hey, come to the dog show, but if you are looking for a dog, please choose responsibly, rescue or breeder. And we did that for a few years, and then which was very successful in terms of paparazzi and raising awareness, but it was kind of the only peak in the year, if you like. And for me, it wasn't good enough. And I was also doing online campaigns like hashtag Where's Mum to encourage people to always ask Where's Mum. And then Caroline Lucas invited me, who's just stepped down, but she was obviously the Brighton Green MP for many years. She invited me to Westminster because I'd given her family advice about which dog to get. And they decided on a rescue Labrador. And she said, sort of, come up to Westminster and discuss your campaign. And she told me to do an e-petition, which I did, the first ever e-petition. So government e-petitions, if you get 100,000, they get debated usually. So I did that and got 100,000. I started lobbying. I started going to Westminster. I was this completely out of my comfort zone and imposter syndrome. But I must have gone to Westminster about 300 times in 6 years, every day off from work. And then went through every single political tool. So e-petitions, we lost that first debate. Uncovered all the sort of dark forces behind the scenes that were stopping us making progress. Going again, select committee, going again, another debate, another petition. Eventually your meetings start moving from Palace of Westminster, Portcullis House, to number 10. And then 10 years after I saw those first puppies coming in, being sold by a third-party dealer, which were dying of parvovirus, we banned third-party dealers. So with that, we made all breeders accountable, because by default the seller and the breeder have to be the same person. We changed it in England, then we changed it in Wales, and then we changed it in Scotland. And I've just come back from Northern Ireland, so that's on the way to be changed as well. So, and that also not only bans third-party dealers in Northern Ireland, but it really compromises the flow of puppies from the Republic of Ireland through Northern Ireland to the British mainland. So it kind of seals off the UK in terms of making all breeders accountable. And that whole journey, which took, 10 years to get the English law over the line, and then slightly more to get Scotland and Wales and obviously Northern Ireland. So we're 15 years after those first puppies. But it just shows what one event, I mean, if I wasn't on duty that night, would any of this ever happen?
That's so crazy to think
about. It just shows that things happen for a reason, and sometimes you've just got to go with it, and you've got to follow your gut instinct. And if there's an injustice that sits really uncomfortable with you, you have to follow it up. And if you care enough about righting that injustice, you automatically kind of become a campaigner. And there are so many ways that you can affect change and be part of the solution.